I love the beach. Good. Do this. Welcome to the Pedagogy Hypothesis, episode 8. That's right, the Big Ocho. I mean, personally, we've been looking forward to this episode the entire time.
Because it stands for infinity and beyond.
What's your name?
My name is Caileen.
My
name is Buzz Lightyear.
You are drunk.
I am stone cold sober. I'm just really rad.
No, that's absolutely true. Hi, I'm Patrick. I am what do I do? I'm a junior high science teacher. I also make educational YouTube videos. This is Caileen. She's not drunk, as far as we know.
Thanks, bud.
I'm trying to inspire some honesty here right away. What do you do?
I do a lot of things, but the reason I'm here is because I am a graduate pedagogy fellow through the Center for Innovations in Teaching and Learning at the University of California, Santa Cruz.
So many acronyms.
I know, dude, it's a lot. I'm also a PhD candidate in chemistry, but I'm actually studying biochemistry and biophysics.
Hey, that's really cool.
Thanks, Pat. You're really cool.
No, that's way too much. I feel like, because it's kind of not a sparse topic, but I can't seem to remember what we are talking about this week. What are we talking about?
Oh, God.
It had to be done at some point. There's going to be plenty of jokes. Hi, Fairdown. What are we talking about this week?
We're going to be talking about memory retention and ways that we can enable our students to enhance their memory in the classroom, and techniques that you can use to enhance memory in the classroom. And before we get started, I want to cue everybody who's listening on Instagram to let me know about something you learned last week. Literally,
I like that.
Anything.
I feel like
anything
now what
that you learned last week, please write it and let us know.
What if I can't say what I learned last week? Because I'm trying to remember. Like, I feel like I can remember what I told the what I told the students to remember, but as far as like what I actually learned last week, like
try and dig for that information and write it down. Anything that you learned last week. It can be like how to log on to Hulu. I don't care.
Okay, that's true.
But anything that you learned that last week that was new.
What did you learn
Put
last
it in
week?
the comments section. I'm lucky if I can remember what I did this week.
No, we can't start off like this. What did you learn last week?
So last week I learned how to generate an info file if an instrument is broken.
Because why did you learn how to do that? There's a story there.
Because at the winery, one of the most critical and central pieces of equipment in our lab is broken.
Oh.
And so I had to generate an info file so I could tell tech support what is wrong with it, basically, or try to. So that's what I learned last week.
Mm-hmm.
Put what you learned last week in the comments. And we'll get started.
Okay.
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I guess we could start with just like the purpose. Why, like, as teachers or instructors or educators in any way, why is it our responsibility to ensure that memory is happening? Like, we make such a big deal on this show about application and active learning and all of these techniques that go to like really put a student-centric, like coming back to that again, a student-centric classroom as the model, not the old school, like, hey, memorize this so you can regurgitate it.
Right.
And it seems like we're doing like an episode all about memorizing stuff.
But we're not.
Right.
We're doing an episode on creating neuronal networks so that you can establish something into your memory that you can actually retrieve back at some later point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So memorization is, sometimes it's actually a necessary evil for like basics and fundamentals, like the alphabet. And we'll talk about the alphabet later, actually.
L-M-N-O-P.
Did I tell you that when I was a kid, I thought Elemento was a letter?
You and me both. Yep.
That's so rad.
There was a store at the mall called Elemento, I think.
Oh, cool.
Not like that's important to anybody in Instagram land. No. Okay.
All right. So, I guess I'll start?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. So, the 3 topics that I'm going to discuss today, Patrick has a few and I have a few. I'm going to be discussing the topics of retrieving, prediction, and interleaving.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know what any of those words mean? Outside of just like basic knowledge? Because I had a very different perspective on what prediction, retrieving, and interleaving meant when I was first learning about pedagogical practices. So I have my notes here. This is actually, so I'm teaching a graduate level course. I'm guest instructing for it. It's Chem 296. It's teaching chemistry. These are actually my recycled notes from
That's 200
my
level
lecture
class?
plans. Yeah, so at the UC, all undergrad courses are 100 level or 0 level, and then graduate courses are 200 level.
Okay.
So it's a graduate level teaching course. Nobody's terrified. It's fine.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to talk about is retrieval. And this is as easy as it sounds. This is the idea of asking students to retrieve information that they have known from the past. And so the easiest and most common way that we can think about retrieval is low stakes quizzes. And so very oftentimes in classes, ideally, you'll have a scenario where the instructor will give out quizzes that are worth like maybe 1% of your grade. And they may give them out like once a week, maybe like twice a month or something like that. But just the process of asking you to retrieve information is actually beneficial for establishing it into your memory. Patrick and I were discussing yesterday, I'm sure we've all had a scenario where we learned something in week 1 of a higher education class and the midterm is like 6 or 7 weeks later. And we have to go back and completely reteach ourselves that stuff from week 1 because we haven't been asked to recall that information again. And so as an instructor, you can use low stakes quizzes, and these can either be things that are going to go in your grade book or not going to go in your grade book at all. These can even be anonymous.
Ooh, okay.
So you can have, at the beginning of class, have a piece of paper with like one question on it that asks them to retrieve information from before, and then pass it up at the end of the class and use that information as a way to help design your lecture for the next class. So you're not even using it for a grade, but you're still using that information to design your next lecture.
Okay, I have a question, if I may.
What's up?
How can you make this smoother? Like, if you're going to, if you still want to do assessments, you want to make it formal enough that you can get information about that student because you still need to use that assessment data to deliver a more effective instruction or to do a grade, however you're going to do it. I guess, what is the most seamless way to do it? Because I'm thinking, I love the idea of a before quiz, or just kind of a, hey, here's a review of what we learned last time, but instead of it being part of the lecture, having it be part of a quiz or an assessment.
Yeah.
Is there one way that you can make it smoother so it's not just like classes bookended by 2 quizzes?
Oh,
you
yeah.
Follow what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, yeah. So this, I think in a small classroom, so in a classroom of like 10 to 40 students, the best way to do it is going to be to have the students physically write down an answer to a quiz at the beginning only. Because we can talk about other ways to close up classes that aren't necessarily a quiz, but still ask them to retrieve information.
Right.
And if you have a classroom that's, say, like 50 to 300 people large, if you have the technological capacity to, which a lot of universities will at the 300 level student classroom size, throw something up on a projector or a PowerPoint that's a question and have the students either submit it through an online resource or just, talk about it with their partner in almost in like a think, pair, share manner.
Have you seen on Google Slides the ability to do the participant questions now?
No.
Oh, this is so cool. Okay. So if you do a Google slideshow, do you use PowerPoint? Do you use Google Slides? Okay. Yeah. So if you have something that's up on the board, you can now enable a link. And it's usually like a shortened link too, so people can just type it in or whatever. And on their devices, they can submit questions, and you could also make that answers to a particular question. I know there's also the clickers. And,
I've never used clickers before, but I've heard it's a thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's more.
I know Cal State uses them a lot.
Yeah. I think at that scale, you can do that pretty effectively. Then again, I'm sure they're not cheap. Maybe they are. I don't know.
I have no idea. Yeah. Again, I've never used them before.
Yeah. I feel like it is almost more for the instructor, though, to get 75% of people get it.
I feel like it's a convenience thing. And I think a lot of them use it for attendance as well.
Oh, true. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so anytime that you can use retrieval, and this will come up again with interleaving, retrieval is beneficial for really solidifying information into a more long-term memory. And Patrick's also going to touch on this with, what's it called?
Spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition. We'll discuss that a little bit later in the episode.
But this all just seems like a bigger concept of use it or lose it. You're just using it more frequently.
It is use it or lose it, but there's specific oh my god, look at Owen right now, sorry. But there
really engaging for the audience.
Yeah.
This is good.
But there are specific techniques that you can use. So a really fun technique that I like to use, especially in STEM, and I hesitate to use STEAM because, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics.
Did I tell you about STREAM?
No, what's STREAM?
At religious schools.
Oh.
Science, technology, religion, engineering, arts, and math.
Whoa, okay.
Because that's where that fits in.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Okay, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to tell you.
That's a thing. Okay. I'm going to say STEM because I don't have experience teaching arts. It doesn't mean that I don't think there's a place for the arts in this discussion. There completely is. I just have zero experience in it, so I am unqualified to talk about it. Complete disclaimer there. So within the realm of STEM, one thing that our study is based on is the scientific method, right? So you observe something, you see a phenomenon, and you hypothesize about it. You know, I think based on my observation of this phenomenon that this is going to happen. I'm going to design this experiment to test it, and I'm going to see what the outcome is. What you're doing is based on your observations of whatever it is that you're looking at, you're making a prediction of what's going to happen based on all of your surroundings.
We're moving to prediction now.
We're moving to prediction. Yes, indeed. And so prediction is any processing that includes processing of not only your current knowledge, but of future knowledge as well. And that knowledge doesn't exist yet. And so the cool thing about prediction, and we were discussing this again yesterday, is that when you ask students to predict something, some of the benefits of prediction are that it limits the possible outcomes in the student's brain, so they're more receptive to new knowledge. And so what this might look like in a classroom is before you even start a lecture, you can say, you know, based on what we learned yesterday, what do you predict an outcome of this scenario would be? Mm-hmm. And so students should have the knowledge in their brain to potentially predict an outcome. So the caveat with prediction as a technique is it works best with non-random scenarios. So an example would be like, if I say A, B, C, you would think, what comes next?
Are we asking the audience here? Because...
You?
No, I answered this yesterday. It's not fair. I've already been fairly primed. Calcium, potassium, molybdenum. I don't know how to pronounce that last element.
Molybdenum.
That's it. Yeah, that works.
It's a really cool atom, actually. Anyway, so the predictive power of that is that you expect the letter D to come next because you know from your prior experiences that the alphabet goes A, B, C, and D. So what happens there as a learner is you have limited the amount of potential outcomes to probably a letter. You know, you're not going to guess A, B, C, book. Or
I love that book.
I love that book. Or like A, B, C, giraffe. Right?
Sorry. Why is that so funny to me? Sorry.
I don't know.
I'm gonna show you a Vine later. There's like this little girl trying to spell words, and she's like C-A-T. Penguin.
I also have a hyperbole and a half cartoon for you. Oh,
good.
Okay. Anyway, so that is a very non-random sequence of events, right? A, B, C, D. So, and there are studies that have shown that prediction also works in a non-random manner. It just doesn't work as effectively. And so prediction allows us to do a couple of things. It allows us to limit the space of possible outcomes from students, which also hones in their focal point. So if you know nothing about a topic and you're not able to make a prediction on it, the possible outcomes are seemingly infinite. Mm-hmm. And your brain is not prepared to take in new information. With prediction in a non-random manner, you can actually limit that scope, and you also make your students more active inherently as well. So one of the other things that prediction does is that because you're asking your students to predict something that hasn't happened yet, it forces them to, again, be active in their own education. So if a teacher is up front in the front of the classroom in a teacher-centric classroom model, we're not asking them to predict anything. We're physically giving them information, and they are reacting to it. So they're taking that information in. When you're asking your students to predict something that hasn't happened yet, they're not being reactive, they're being active in their education. Yeah. So that's what prediction does, essentially. With
prediction as a follow-up here, do you have any tips for increasing that activeness? Because I'm picturing, like, in K through 8 now, I'm going to have a hard time getting... just like you are with 300 people or a larger class, getting anybody to get their hand up and volunteer answers.
Yeah.
The people who know it or are comfortable taking a chance already will be the ones, and you'll see the same 5 people every time.
Yeah. So a technique I like to use a lot when I'm having a situation where I'm asking students to do something that isn't on like a quiz or necessarily even a writing format is an activity called Think, Pair, Share. I don't know if anybody's heard of Think, Pair, Share before. If you have, you
mentioned
can
it
raise your
briefly.
hand. If you've listened to PH before, maybe you've heard of it. But Think, Pair, Share is the idea where you give students something to think about. And you say, like, you got 3 minutes to have an opinion on this, or whatever the time frame is. And so I may ask the students, like, based on yesterday's lecture, what do you predict might happen in this scenario? Think about it for 3 minutes. And then after 3 minutes, you pair up with the person next to you, and you and your partner discuss what you predict might happen in the future, and then the other partner shares their opinion. And so that other person has to process your knowledge, incorporate it into their knowledge. It's social, which we've discussed so many times is important for education and neuronal networks here. And then the other person actually shares that knowledge out for you.
Right.
And that could be even as small as the person next to you shares with, person C over here, right? It doesn't have to be to the whole classroom. It can be to the person in line, right? It's
That's awesome.
Think, pair, and then share somehow, right? I feel like I'm like an air traffic controller. Yeah.
I like that too, just because I've been in that situation just personally where sharing with the person next to me, like the professor had attempted to do the... You call it pair, share.
Think, pair, share.
Think, pair, share, dare. Yeah, we can make something out of that.
Have a pair.
I love homophones. But yeah, it's just like, now you're in the position of retelling somebody's story to the entire class, which is like, okay, it's not your story, but you don't want to completely butcher what that person just said, and then they're all mad at you because they got it wrong. Like, I was always so much more nervous doing the pair share with everyone in class. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of having A and B share with C over there. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's really helpful. So if you're trying to use prediction in a classroom, you can use it in that manner potentially. But again, I want to reinforce what it really does from like a pedagogical and from a neurobiological perspective, which I am not.
Yeah, no, that's above
a neurobiologist by any stretch of anybody's imagination. However,
we'll stretch someone's imagination.
Yeah, we'll stretch someone's imagination. But what it does is it limits the space of potential outcomes, which allows learners to focus in, and it also makes them more active in their education as opposed to reactive. That's the take home from prediction. When
you were first kind of practicing that technique, and a lot of these can be used, I imagine, both interchangeably and in combination with others, and there's no like black and white. This is just using prediction or whatever the case is. I would be afraid of leading the students to an answer. How do you narrow it in just enough to give them, they still have to work to predict, but it's not like I'm limiting the answers so much that it's guiding you to it. And I imagine that's going to be different at our levels.
It is different at our levels, and I think that's a consequence, not a consequence.
Byproduct?
A byproduct, or a function of like what type of material you're teaching. Mm-hmm. So the question should be applicable to this scenario, right? So if I'm in a molecular biology lab, I can say, based on last week's experiment, if we redid the experiment with this product instead of, or this reagent instead of this reagent, what do you think the outcome would be? The students have done a ligation before. They know how it works fundamentally. We're just going to change one piece of that out and make them predict what's going to happen. This also inherently has retrieval involved because you're asking them to recall information from last week. So like Patrick said, we're now combining multiple different techniques or really ideas and concepts together to enhance memory.
That being said, this week's episode is brought to you by our sponsors, Multiple Different Techniques. Multiple Different Techniques.
I thought you were going to say like some fucking... Oh, damn it.
It's about time.
It's about time.
We're 20 minutes in. How are you not sworn by now?
I'm so proud of myself.
Multiple Different Techniques, now available in all 50 states.
I thought you were going to say like some vitamin that like enhances memory or something.
No. Yeah. No, we don't have real sponsors here. What are you talking about?
Owen is our sponsor.
Owen is our spirit animal and mascot and just being such a good boy.
He's
not
so
even
cute.
in the crate today either.
No, he's tired. He was playing up in the mountains yesterday.
He's tight.
Anywho.
All right.
Okay, so my last technique is called interleaving. And I really like interleaving. So interleaving and retrieval are also very like this sometimes. So interleaving is the idea of practicing and interleaving multiple topics together to increase long-term retention of knowledge. So what does that look like?
What?
Right?
Wait.
Practicing and interleaving multiple topics together to increase long-term retention of knowledge.
Okay.
So, before we go on what interleaving knowledge is, interleafing.
Yes, that is it.
We just twined some leaves together. No, interleaving. Leaving. So, before we understand interleaving, we need to understand what we typically do in classrooms, at least in higher ed.
Cool.
So imagine your classic syllabus. Week 1 we learn this, week 2 we learn this, 3, 4, etc., etc. That's called blocked learning. So we'll call, hello tummy.
Good tummy.
We'll call week 1 A. We learn topics A, and A. Week 2, we learn B, 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 C, 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 etc., etc., etc. That is blocked learning. That's when you learn about one topic for a block of time and you just leave it there. And then we learn about B. We don't come back to A. We just learn about topic B. And we go B, 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 C, 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 etc., etc. So if blocked learning looks like A, B, 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 C, 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 interleaving is going to look like A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C.
Yeah.
So you're going to bring back the information and interleave it into new information. And so interleaving is kind of like, if you can imagine, like, you know, this, like eagle pose, right? In yoga. Eagle pose. It's the idea of bringing two things together and intertwining them almost. So if we can interleave our topics in education and bring them back and into our new knowledge, it's going to actually increase long-term retention of that knowledge. So this is why it also resonates very strongly with retrieval and pulling back information, because you're asking students to pull it back. But as an educator, you are timing it correctly such that it is applicable to current material.
Dude.
So it's not just bringing it back and having them remember it. It's bringing them back, having it remember it, and putting it into your current curricula.
Okay. So, sorry, that's how I talk. That's just everything about me.
It's great.
Thanks.
Everything about you is great.
No, many falsities. You remember I was talking about next generation science standards?
Yes.
Okay, NGSS. It's like 5 years old now or something like that. Not every state in the U.S. has adopted it yet, but these are these new standards for potentially K through high school. Just K through 8 is really adopting them right now. Okay. They have adopted interleaving as an option.
Oh.
So,
okay. When
you were in junior high, I don't know if you remember it like in this much detail. Do you remember what subjects?
Thank God.
Yeah. I'll show you pictures someday if I trust you enough.
Oh my God, I would
No,
love
you don't
that.
want to.
Yes,
you don't,
I would.
No, dude, just it's so many chins, such a bowl haircut. You don't need to see it.
I do.
No.
Please.
If this video gets 1,000, no. Anyway. Okay, but if you all remember, if you went to school in the U.S., I imagine a lot of other countries will do this too. You learn one particular subject at each year. So it's like we've said, 5th grade will learn the water cycle and cells. 6th grade will learn about like tectonic plates and whatever. 7th grade will be life sciences. 8th grade will be physical sciences. That's kind of this old Common Core standard way of thinking about things. It's the same thing.
Very blocked learning.
Yeah, exactly. Very blocked learning, where like you'll learn all about this in 7th grade is something that I used to tell to 6th graders. Can you just like hold your question and your inane curiosity?
For like 365 days.
That's all. Yeah, I mean, like it's coming right up, I promise. In the scope of your entire life, like.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner.
Keeping in mind, like I'm twice their age, so whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, now in favor of this interleaving model. They call it integrated, but it's the exact same thing. Yeah. Where instead of having it as block subjects, they're having it as 5 common themes that all go throughout their education.
Oh, cool.
So it's stuff like waves, but waves is applied to earth science, waves is applied to life science, all this stuff.
Perfect.
Right.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Dude.
Like you can still.
That is so rad.
It is awesome.
You have an own hair in your eyelash.
Oh, thank you. Do I get to make a wish?
Oh shit, I lost it.
I wish I don't have to show that 7th grade picture. Nope. Big
ol' cannon, nope.
Yeah. So I like that. It's hard to implement because who do you decide to roll that project out on? Yeah. Something that my school hasn't done yet. We're still doing the NGSS style where we're making sure to highlight, like, here's how you learned about this last year and here's how it integrates into waves as applied to hearing. That's how we would do it for life science. It's just one of the ways.
That is so cool.
It's good.
I really like that.
It's good. I mean, it shows like these themes are coming up. My kids know that my students know that if they know one thing, I tell them, and feel free to complete the sentence.
Yes.
Energy,
and ask any questions, by the way.
Yes. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only. Somebody in the audience. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only. But you get it. I mean, that's a thing
Is it recycled?
Yes, that's it. No, change forms. And so having them see like that example, which is one of our core ideas again of all these things: matter, energy, waves, engineering, design, all that stuff. Then we got plenty of time still. I'm looking at the battery too on the big camera.
Ow.
yeah, knowing that that's going to come up a bunch, it's like, oh man, he's been telling us this whole like energy cannot be created or destroyed thing since 4th grade. Why are we keep on? Oh, because it keeps on coming up. That's why.
That is so cool,
man.
dude. I love that.
So
I don't know what other educational systems are like, and if any of you have an opinion on other educational systems, let us know. If interleaving is a thing that people are practicing, or if.
Dude, that's where I just love the idea of having like a sensei.
A what?
Like a teacher. It's basically what the standards are like in Texas. Okay. Katie by the Bay. Interesting. I thought the Katie would be like in the Bay Area in California here, but interesting. You're from Texas.
Very personal perspective. That's like a very
I know.
inclusive
Like,
perspective.
what are there other bays other than like the San Francisco Bay? Are you kidding me? Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's implemented. Katie, are you an instructor by chance? I have witnessed semi-interleaving.
Semi-interleaving.
What does that even mean?
I guess that could be like integrating something like basically Corpus Christi. Yeah, there's a bay there, isn't there? Huh? I don't know what that is. It's in Texas. It's on the coast, I think.
By the bay.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. We're not geographers.
I'm not a mapist. I really.
Yeah. I guess we should talk about.
At a large aquarium. Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
Oh, that's super awesome.
You know, we always forget about aquariums and like zoos, I think, in the overall educational picture.
Museums.
Yeah, museums.
Like Gabe or
Yeah.
Ashley.
Yeah, we definitely like. I think
SciCommunity paleontologists.
Yes, I think because we have like them and others, we remember like museums, but yeah, aquariums, zoos, like other forms of like living animals. Yeah. Like
we should remember that we live by the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Yeah, we probably should.
2 hours south of San Antonio.
Let's go You want to go sometime? You want to go to the aquarium? We're gonna hang out with.
Can we please?
Owen is basically a land otter. I've seen him do the little abalone thing.
He totally is.
Yeah.
He does like this with his little paws.
Yeah.
It's so cute. Okay, right. It's your turn, bro.
I'm gonna go and restart the camera right now.
Way to get out of your turn.
All right. Okay. So in this dynamic here, it's like undergrad and graduate and then K through 8. But these perspectives cross over all the time. So this is going to be one of the ones where like, maybe we'll talk about some of the differences, but really a lot of these can be used for like whatever level you're teaching. Okay, awesome. We're interleaving in UK schools, but we don't call it that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just crap in United States higher ed.
Now, so what does it look like? What does that form of interleaving looks like? Terrific scientific busters, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
I like that name. I like that name.
That's so rad.
Yeah.
I saw a handle the other day that was not that kind of doctor.
Oh, cool.
That's also genius.
And then, Katie, all AZA facilities have education departments.
What is AZA?
I would guess American Zoological Association?
Oh.
Aquarium, zoos.
Not just a nice hat rack.
You're telling me. Yeah, I guess I hope so. I hope they're well funded too. I hope so.
Probably not though.
Yeah. I mean, how much... It's the edutainment trap, right? It's like you have to be able to hook people into coming to your facility or to... Thank you. You're not going to get your...
It.
Good.
Shit.
Thanks.
It's just like stuck.
Stop! This is not what the people came for.
I keep looking over and you have this one eyelash. Will you just hold still for a second?
This is great content.
Here you go. Yeah. I wish.
Oh, I got it right. American Zoological Society. Thank you. All right, we'll do that on the personal live stream. You want to do my eyebrows later? Sweet.
Do eyebrows.
All right, sweet.
Turn it over for massage.
Okay, so interleaving. Thank you. Is the highest form of accreditation for zoos and aquariums.
Oh, that's cool. Rad.
That's super rad. That being said, let us know some things. I want to know how that education style works. Because I'm guessing Alex might be able to use that with sidewalk stuff too.
Oh yeah, true.
Because you have like a limited amount of time. You want things to be live. I'm guessing.
Those scenarios are nice because they're inherently active too. Which is like super
I love that.
Convenient for you.
As far as the first technique that we were going to talk about on my side of things, this one was really similar to retrieving. The first technique is going to be called spaced repetition. Okay, spaced repetition. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're repeating things, but you're spacing out the time frame in between. And there are a couple different ways that you can go about this. Definitely, like if you want the actual, nitty-gritty of the technique, go watch some videos about it. There are plenty. One of my favorites that you can go... Oh, shoot. The dude's name was Thomas Frank. He does a bunch of memory-related videos, which is where I stole a lot of these from. But if you want the actual techniques, go check out some of those. Spaced repetition is all about starting at kind of a blank slate, right? And saying, like, I'm going to review this information, and then the stuff that I already know very well, I'm going to delay for a little bit. I'm still going to review it, but I'm going to delay it more and more. So if you were studying for, again, like thinking about this from the K through 8 perspective, a vocabulary test, whether that's scientific vocabulary or whatever the case is. I know that like everybody in medical school has to do this a ton because you're memorizing so many different proteins. A lot of it is memorization, right? So one thing that you can do is build flashcards, whether it is in like physical real deal flashcards or like with the app Anki. It's
Anki?
Anki. Yeah, it's flashcard app.
Oh, okay.
That one seems to be pretty popular.
Yeah.
The idea is that on the very first day, you make all your cards, you review them once. If you get it right, boom, you don't have to study it for another 2 days. You get it wrong, it's going to come right back into the bottom of the deck. Same thing with your physical cards. If you keep on going through that process, and your teacher is not doing the predicting and retrieving daily like, everybody who watches the Pedagogy hypothesis does, then you get to now review it and do your own bit of retrieving on the daily. Maybe not on the daily, but you're at least to the point where you are taking charge of that repetition.
Owen.
Thank you, Owen.
Saving us from all the evil in the world.
That's right.
So is spaced repetition better suited for needing to memorize those foundational basics? Or do you think it can also be used for more concept-based learning?
I think it could be both, but it is inherently like flashcard system driven. Right, so it's tough to put like an equation on there and practice the equation, right?
Right.
It would have to be like a vocabulary, a concept. Yeah, I'm thinking it is more towards like, that is the point of this one, right? Is memory for this particular episode.
It's memorization,
right?
For that specific technique.
Yeah, and this is definitely more. You can use it as a student. I think that's where it's kind of touted the most is for students to get a hold on whatever they're trying to study. Mm-hmm. But you can also use it as a teacher, but you have to then do the kind of like assessment and then go back to these cards where you're saying like, oh man, clearly like, my students aren't quite understanding this concept. We need to review it more often. And even if it's not as formal as like, all right, I have these decks of flashcards that are going and getting cycled through. It could just be like, oh man, we haven't talked about this in a while, and I want us to still remember everything equally, right? Which definitely goes back to retrieving quite a bit.
Yeah.
So a lot of those are repeating.
Yeah.
Have you ever used? Do you remember last time you used study cards or like had to remember?
Had to memorize something?
Yeah.
Because again, from my perspective, there's a difference between long-term memory and memorization. Memorization gives you the foundations with which you can build higher order thinking off of. Mm-hmm. You need those basics, but that's like the bottom of your pyramid, right? And then you build higher order thinking off of that.
Yeah.
I think the last time I had to memorize something was probably my amino acids and biochemistry.
Undergrad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to undergrad too, and it was like a lot of anatomy stuff. But then after that, I got to...
How many bones do we have?
5. No, 216. I think. Oh, God, if I get that wrong. 216. It's 216, right? Is that the adult number or the child number?
Dude, I don't know.
I swear. Yeah. But either way, like, we've been applying that stuff since then.
Right.
Right? Gosh, like, I remember I took an immunology course, and, like, that was a lot of memorization, too. Like, all the different immune cells. And I don't remember hardly any of it. I've used anatomy so much more than immunology, even though I put in like the same amount of work to memorize all of these base names.
Right.
So it does. Hopefully we get to see a lot of the active learning applied to the memorization we're doing here too.
I'm gonna go close the door so Owen doesn't keep barking at all the evil things in the world.
Bork. Cool. All right. What are we gonna talk about next?
It's your turn, bro.
Oh yeah. So the relevant stuff. Okay. We mentioned this in I think. It was one of the first episodes or something like but making sure that when you are instructing, you're leaving you're doing some kind of relevant example for whatever the students actually care about. And that's, you got to tread a line between like pandering to whatever they're into and just, not being like the super cool teacher who's trying to like, make a bunch of pop culture references.
So cool.
I am so cool though. I don't even have to try.
You
No,
don't.
my culture references are like talking about Pokemon and different animes and stuff. I'm trying. I'm trying. The music is just so terrible these days.
Kids these days.
Kids these days. I'm almost 30. I can say that. It's just a matter of time before it's get off my lawn.
I know. I was going to say.
Get off.
The two of us here sitting on our pedagogical stoop.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. Hey, Terrific Scientific Busters is back. All right, let us see how you incorporate other subjects.
Can you read it out loud?
Yes, I guess so. Basically, it's when we teach a topic, for example, a literacy topic, but you incorporate other subjects within the literacy topic you teach, i.e. drama and science. Oh, that makes sense. So is that incorporating other topics within that topic?
Yeah, that's like extreme interleaving. I don't even know if it's...
I like...
It's almost more like interdisciplinary education.
Yeah, that's still important too.
Which is very important. Yeah, I mean, I went to a liberal arts school for my undergrad, so...
Yeah, no, okay.
I'm all about interdisciplinary education.
Yeah, I do love that idea as far as... I guess that kind of relates to this too. Like applying their interests to whatever you're trying to get them to memorize. Pardon me. So, like, you probably came up with some kind of mnemonic to memorize a large string of things. For anybody within medical subjects, the cranial nerves. There are 12 cranial nerves that you need to remember.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, and there's so many acronyms for it. And some of them are super dirty, which are the ones that I love to memorize. But then some of them are like nice and
Patrick.
Whatever. You know that's how you would memorize them too.
Oh, if anybody knows me, they know that
Yeah.
is accurate.
But okay, do you remember PEMDAS?
Nope.
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
What was that?
You don't remember that one?
No.
That's order of operations. Parentheses,
Oh.
exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. But like, who has an Aunt Sally that really matters for? You know, I don't know. The same thing with I'm trying to remember the planet's acronym. Now it's just like I can picture them some like planet of the solar system, MVE.
Yeah.
My very something mother made us pancakes or something.
Only now Pluto's not there.
Oh yeah. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Pluto.
Yeah. But either way, trying to get it to relate to whatever your students are actually interested in, that is going to be a little bit harder. Hopefully at that point, your students are active enough that they can come up with their own acronym. Now, it's hard to do because sometimes these things rhyme. Sometimes these things are like so well established that you just you don't remember the first time you heard, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But that is stuck so much in your mind that 25 years later, you still have it.
Yeah.
You know? And then the last one.
You had one more really good example.
Oh.
This is why you write stuff.
No, I did. Now we're using
down.
we're using it for a
All right, pardon.
stand here. Criminy.
Howdy.
All right, let's put it. We can do that back on the thing there.
Yeah, Patrick has to open his computer up because
because I'm
unlike his co-host, he didn't print out or write out his
prediction, retrieving. Oh, and then the environment. Right. Yeah, good. I love the environment. All right, so the last thing.
Huge fan of the environment.
Yeah, so the context-based memorization.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, it's like, this all makes sense now.
It's funny that I couldn't remember that.
Because we're in the context of you were in lab yesterday, so that makes a lot of sense that you didn't remember it here.
Yeah. Wow, good example.
If you've ever been told, before a final, to take a practice test in the classroom that you're going to have the final in, that's exactly what we're talking about. Because certain things are triggered by environmental context. So that could be sitting in that one same spot that you're going to sit in for the entire class. That's where you learn the material. You can picture the instructor in front of the classroom talking about that one thing. And, oh man, they were wearing that stupid outfit that one day. And you kind of put yourself in that situation of the actual instruction, which aids in memory. That could be picturing yourself where you learned it. So that could be just severe imagination, or it could be a study and test skill.
Is that really possible in K through 8?
I mean, all your classes are in one room anyway.
Yeah,
well,
you
not
can't
all the time.
Study outside of class, right? You can't go into the classroom after hours and
No, we have
grader.
we have a study hall at the end of every day, but that is.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
oh.
I mean that's a mandatory one too. So you're in your homeroom but again, not everybody.
Cool.
That itself is cool, but again, not everybody is going to have access to that. But
is your phone screen cracked, or is that just Owen hair?
No, that is my phone screen cracked. We mentioned this last time.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, but those are only a couple different techniques. You definitely had a lot more and more depth It's like you do this for a living or something.
It's like, this is my job.
Yeah. That also makes me think too, like, why don't, like, I as a K through 8 instructor have my students memorize so much more? Or like, why don't I help them with memory devices more than we do? We mentioned like,
I don't know, bro.
well, why not though? Because
yeah,
like,
I mean, so one thing that you can't see in my syllabus here, is that not only do I have my curricula for the class, I also have optional literature that I provide online for the students, and I also have activities. So I make sure that within my syllabus, not only do I have the content, optional literature for the students to look at on their own whim, but activities that I'm going to use to either help enhance whatever it is that I'm teaching or to demonstrate things.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually within a class that I'm teaching, I'll have anywhere from 1 to 3 different activities. And I make sure to actually put these on my syllabus so I don't forget to do them. Because it's not innate for educators right now. It's not, like, we don't always think to do things, which is sad. We think to regurgitate information. And so if I cue myself to remember to actually do these activities by writing them down, I actually do them.
So lesson planning is useful, is what you're saying.
Lesson planning is useful. And like actually making note of activities, not just content, right? So content is only one part of your job at this point if you're trying to be a progressive pedagogical practicer.
Wow.
You also have to physically write these activities down or else you won't remember to do them because, you know, we weren't raised on that kind of education, and so we have to like cue ourselves to remember to re-entrain ourselves.
Yeah.
To be better instructors.
Yeah, for real. What have you, I mean, not that we're like completely done with like content and giving like valuable memory skills. What have you seen as a result of training all these graduate students to help out with memory? I guess, like, do they appreciate it? Do they use it? What kind of feedback have you gotten from it?
It makes when your students, so ironically enough, I am a graduate student, but my students are also graduate students usually. So I'm doing a lot of peer-to-peer education in my role, as well as obviously the undergrads that I teach. But if you enhance the memory and the knowledge of the persons that you're teaching, your job becomes like 10 times easier. You have less emails to answer. You have, less repetition in your job, like in office hours, for example. You're not repeating the same information over and over again because you've already asked them to recall that information in the classroom over and over again. And so when your students remember things better, it makes your job easier. Like, that's what no one's telling you. Like, that's our deep, dark secret. Like, of course we want our students to remember things better. Like, that's our job, right? But it also makes your job so much easier. So, like, if it makes your job easier and it helps people to retain knowledge, why don't you do it?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like, we're also kind of selfish too. Like, I don't got endless time. Like,
yeah,
I really care about my students and I really want them to learn things, but I also want to make my job easier. And there's a little bit of work on the forefront. Like, oh my gosh, I had to think of an activity and actually write it on this piece of paper. 5 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. Versus the 2 hours you're going to spend in office hours with people asking you the same question over and over and over again.
Okay. I will say, like, that is something that I've seen as well on a smaller scale. Like, from having the students that do like memory devices and want to like get a little bit ahead of their classmates, they love it.
Yeah.
Not everybody is into it because, again, it does take a little bit of investment to learn spaced repetition, for instance. Probably so much focus on being hands-on rather than rote memorization. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something we talk about quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Like trying to emphasize active learning, and social networks and experimentation and lab time and in the field stuff.
Yeah. And when we mean active learning, we don't just mean necessarily getting your hands dirty and doing something active. Like, we of course mean that, but we also mean having the students be active participants in their education. So, which we mentioned earlier with prediction, where a student is now active in their thoughts and not just reactive in their thoughts. So active learning isn't just associated with like, I did a thing with my hands and now I know a thing. It's also like, I put forth mental energy and mental capacity to engage in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Which is why when I say active learning, everyone's like, oh my God, so difficult, can't execute. But it's also just getting your students to interact with the material and the knowledge.
People sound very charming.
Oh my god, can't execute.
Yep, please. That'll be our intro.
Oh no.
Perfect. Good. Excellent.
No.
Excellent. Hands on, minds on is what we say here. I like that.
Yeah.
Although I've been having to tell my 7th graders lately to keep their hands off each other.
Oh right.
Yeah.
They're at that age, huh?
Yeah.
Body parts are exciting.
See these eyebrows? And on that note, okay.
Okay.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about?
No.
Thank you very much, Katie, and everybody else who's been commenting. We really
Yeah.
appreciate the feedback, and like it is always awesome to hear about like what everybody is doing. Yeah, we'd like to keep the dialogue going with everybody.
Yeah, it's I mean, as you know, we're preaching student centric the entire time, and in this scenario, you are the students and we are not. And so we don't want to make it all about ourselves. Plus, we literally talk to each other all day long on Sundays. So, which I'm sure you're already over.
Keep having a cute dog.
That's what I'm good for.
What a good guy.
I'm good for a cute dog.
All right, want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say?
No.
All right, well, thank you for watching this episode of the Pedagogy Hypothesis. All of our links to socials and things will be in the description. And just, you know what? Go do something awesome this week.
Yeah.
Come back next week at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
And hang out with us.
And hang out and tell us what you did.
What is the topic for next week?
Oh, yeah.
While I'm doing that, you can tell where they can find us.
Oh, yeah. So, I guess all the socials, Patrick Kelly with an underscore at the end, or youtube.com/corporus. That'll be in the description if you watch the YouTube version, or you can go to my page. K. Marison for Caileen Bryson.
Marie Bryson.
Yes. CAIM.
Ooh, this is...
No,
think about it.
Marie.
Think about it.
CAIMARISON.
Good job, yeah.
K. Marison Roney.
Yep.
The Santa Cruz treat.
Yep.
All right, what are we talking
And
about next
Field
week?
Blend Project if you want wine shit.
Oh, yeah, the Field Blend Project. That's been the
next week
cool
is
new
good.
thing. What are we talking about?
Next week is conflict resolution.
Yes, I love
Ooh.
conflict. I love resolving conflict. That's what
We
should
do
say.
it every day with each other. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, we don't want to spoil it, though.
No, but if you want to talk about conflict resolution, come hang out with us next week.
Yeah, bring your kids. All right, thank you for watching. Hey, good job not swearing as much this week.
Yeah.
Good job. All right.
Killing it.
Bye, everybody.
Ugh.